Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to push on with our industry panel that we are calling the Big Skills Drive. So the agreement on AUKUS submarine program has reignited the debate around Australian manufacturing. In addition to this, the war in Ukraine and events in our own region have refocused attention on sovereign capability in areas such as critical minerals and energy. Our next session will look at what is going to be involved if we are to achieve some of the very ambitious and exciting goals that policymakers have in mind, including how we use this opportunity to diversify the workforce. I'm very pleased that we'll have two of the new Jobs and Skills Councils feature in this discussion today. So joining us today on the Big Skills Drive panel are Dr. Gavin Lind, the CEO of the Mining and Automotive Skills Alliance, Kit McMahon, the Chair of Tradeswomen Australia, Sharon Robertson, CEO of the Manufacturing Industry Skills Alliance, and I'm delighted to introduce as facilitator the highly regarded and engaging commentator Claire Field, Principal of Claire Field and Associates.
Gosh, if I don't do a very good job of being engaging, I've been set up with a very high bar. Craig, thank you very much. I get the easy part. I get to ask these three fabulous people some questions, and noting time constraints, we'll also try and make sure that there's time for you to ask your questions as well. So I'm going to go down the line with the first question. And Gavin, you are, as Craig said, CEO of the Mining and Automotive Skills Alliance. It's a jobs and skills council. What do you do?
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation to be here and the amazing panellists as well. So the Mining and Automotive Skills Alliance is the Mining and Automotive Jobs and Skills Council. So we look after the mining extractive industries, including drilling, metalliferous, coal, and on the automotive side, it's the full spectrum. So it's the AUR training package, AUM training package, service and repair, including some retail elements of that. So even though that's what we do, and we've been very literal in our name, by the way, you have no confusion as to what we do and who we do it for, but it is a great value chain opportunity, particularly with Sharon, for example, in terms of manufacturing naturally fits in, transport and logistics, energy, electrotechnology for green energy futures, those kinds of things. So a very integrated model, even though this is where we play at the minute, that's what we do.
Brilliant. And now you started off as a pilot skills organisation, so you're new into this formal role with training packages. But Sharon, you've been doing this for a bit of time. You're, again, as Craig said, CEO of what's now Manufacturing Industry Skills Australia, but previously people would have known it as IBSA. So talk us through how your role has changed. Now you're a Jobs and Skills Council.
And thanks, Claire, and not dissimilar to Gavin, we've got quite a range of industry sectors that we're covering. Many of them are areas that we had responsibility for before, including welding, engineering, and whatnot, but we've now got a different remit which includes food and beverage process manufacturing, pharmaceutical, emerging industries such as space. So it's certainly a different and broader sector, but probably more importantly, I think it's the remit. And the remit of the Jobs and Skills Councils, if I can for a minute, it's actually very exciting. I think we're all quite energised about the fact that this is an opportunity to really support a lot of the changes and opportunities we've heard about this morning. There's nearly 10 of us, and the 10 Jobs and Skills Councils will be working collaboratively. They're a tripartite model, and they'll be very much trying to address the challenges that apparently are almost unsolvable, but the issues of workforce challenges and skills, I suppose, solutions that are actually driven by industry. And probably that's the other thing we always have been as a former SSO. We were obviously industry owned, but that's certainly really become a really key feature of the Jobs and Skills Councils now.
So a deeper level of engagement in the sector as well as slightly shifted responsibilities. for different industry areas.
And that's probably a really good point, Claire. Previously, the model was perhaps narrowly focused on training packages. This certainly allows us to have a much broader purview around industry engagement, but probably more importantly, particularly for people here today, around implementation, promotion and monitoring. So having a better understanding of what are the challenges that are being faced on the ground as it relates to a lot of the challenges we've heard this morning around apprenticeship completions, etc. That's a new area for us, and obviously working with the GTOs here and everybody else here today will be absolutely critical.
Brilliant. Now, Kit, you're not going to fix training packages or have that kind of a role.
I have some ideas.
I'm sure you do. You are both the CEO of Women's Health in the Southeast and, probably more so for this audience, Chair of Tradeswomen Australia Group. So explain a bit about that organisation, if you don't mind.
So Tradeswomen Australia Group is one of, there's quite a few of our organisations, types of organisations around, typically established by women with lived experience of inequality in trades, not-for-profit, mission-driven organisations who seek to address the barriers that prevent women getting into male-dominated trades.
And so when we were talking ahead of this panel, you were already aware of what BAE Skills Academy was doing and those incredibly impressive, and I just have to point out to Craig, a 13 percentage point increase, but actually more than almost a doubling, 1.5 times, increase in terms of the participation of women in those very traditional apprenticeships. So talk us through what we heard from BAE and what you took away from it.
So probably not too much about what they're doing to address the drivers of inequality, but what I do know that they do is they don't just do what I call the Women in Pink Boots campaigns. They actually address the systemic drivers that prevent equity in our workforces. So they do things like, what are the sexual harassment rates and how do we address them? They do things like actually have job programs for women or people who don't typically get these jobs to promote them. They do make a business case very well about the return to diverse workforces, and they do make a case and do address the drivers of pay gap. So that's what I know that they do. And it's not short-term stuff. They've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, and again, some incredible, you know, as the Minister said to us this morning, when he looks internationally, our completion rates are no good, our literacy rates are no good, and when you hear about programs like the BAE's Early Careers program with a 95% retention rate, there's an awful lot that we can be learning from them, and I feel like our submarines could actually end up being very well built and even work, which would be great. Now, Sharon, you can't tell us about a whole lot of defence issues because otherwise we could either sell those secrets or we could rush off and build them in our own backyard. But what did you take away from the BAE presentation, what you heard? And I know and you're having dealings with them here in Australia as well, so share as much as you can.
Thank you, Claire. And look, BAE Australia is certainly working very closely with Barrows Finesse and certainly taking the opportunities and lessons learnt from that to start thinking about what will happen here in Australia or could potentially happen. I should probably call out the fact that we're talking about 30 years until we're actually building submarines here in Australia, so it's a little way off. So certainly thinking about what are the skills needed and what are the actual, I suppose, models for actually preparing ourselves for that is important, but not necessarily a here and now. Probably what more importantly here and now is there's actually quite a lot of projects in that space. If you look at the frigates and various other key manufacturing, I suppose, that's happening here in Australia already, you can certainly say that there's the beginnings of the opportunity for us to think a bit differently about how we do things. Needless to say, it's not going to be dissimilar from every other sector which we've heard about regarding skill shortages. The JSCs, for instance, and just picking up on Kit's comment before, the JSCs, the 10 CEOs, spent 2 days in Canberra, the last 2 days, to actually talk about what are the priorities for us. And I think the number one, or definitely the number one, was diversity inclusion. It is what can we do to actually really tap into those underutilised cohorts, the actual non-traditional cohorts, etc. Because I think attracting them into, I suppose, skilling up of the sector going forward is going to be absolutely key.
Absolutely agree, especially after the demography presentation where we're running out of people, so we've got to make better use of those that we've got. Can you talk us through a little bit about some of the changes that you're seeing in other parts of manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing? If we're thinking big skills, post-COVID we've had an emphasis on trying to onshore or reshore a lot of that kind of activity. Can you share some of what you're seeing there in the industry?
Yes, and I think we've all obviously seen the focus on the need to actually enable that sovereign capability and actually onshore a lot more than perhaps has been manufactured here in Australia in the past. You've only got to look at obviously some of the challenges we had during COVID, and what was the key challenge? We don't have those skills. We don't even know what those skills are. We don't have the capability and we don't have the bandwidth. So this has provided, I think, a really strong platform to have the support, I think, of the community and of governments to actually, I suppose, revitalise the modern manufacturing sector. That aligned with, not necessarily in a negative way, but more of a positive way, the actual AI and technological advancements that are obviously enabling, hopefully, a much more efficient and effective manufacturing sector here in Australia. But with that comes the issue of actually aligning our skills and aligning the model to actually provide that training, because not every part of that's going to sit with one employer. Certainly, I think the rotation model, etc., of the GTO model provides a really good opportunity for us to start enabling, I suppose, the opportunity for people to get access to those skills.
Terrific, thank you. And Gavin, not so much in the automotive side, but more in the mining side. When we talk about critical minerals and the transition to the green economy, supply chain issues, these are also things that you're looking at and thinking about and trying to work out skills and training related responses to. Share us a bit about, I haven't asked you about BAE. What did you take from the BAE presentation, and then tell us about green skills and all those critical minerals?
Fantastic. No, I really enjoyed the BAE conversation. I think that integrated model, we see similar things in Australia. BHP, for example, has Future Fit Academies, which they designed specifically, one, to answer underrepresentation in certain trades. Heavy duty diesel fitter is the taxonomy there. So that's how they get their gender equity in. So they have a control right from the beginning, and they also make sure that they use every teachable hour with a student. So it's how they do a 2-year apprenticeship instead of a 4-year apprenticeship in 2 years, because they work a FIFO arrangement in their academies. So someone's available for 8 days to be taught something. So it's a maximizing use of hours. We do answering a lot at the minute, particularly in the minerals industry, around sexual harassment. So we have a program that we've developed called Building Safe and Respectful Workplaces, because the first thing you've got to do is address people's concerns about their psychosocial safety in an industry, or how they can participate in that way. I think millennials coming in, or Gen Zs as well, would say that 75% have very serious concerns about the mining industry and simply don't want to join because of what they hear in the media. But if I may move on, because to that very exciting question, I've always used this analogy that, how did I say this? Software engineers became car manufacturers, and car manufacturers have now become miners. Tesla needs, the software engineer needs the raw materials to make its vehicle and its green transition. Now, the Australian government released in June this year its critical mineral strategy. Not long after that, it was the Queensland government's critical mineral strategy. And we are named as a JSC, you as well, Sharon, by the way, in the federal government's one, as we will be developing this new workforce that goes with it. But to contextualize why this is important is there was the sudden move around critical minerals. Now, it comes from the US. Now, the US Inflation Reduction Act basically allowed, or it mandated, that 40% of all materials used in electric vehicles have to come from countries that have free trade agreements with them. So it's responsibly sourced, and that'll increase to 80% by 2027. Which is why you suddenly see this very active discussion about lithium in Australia, because Australia produces 53% of the world's lithium. We're the second largest resource of lithium, but we still have a long way to go to do something with it, because Australia, of course, is also very good at digging something up off the ground, but not doing anything with it onshore. So it's the secondary sovereign capability of beneficiating that lithium here and making sure it's usable, from a strategic point of view, supply chain point of view, but also from a defense perspective. So there's part of this green response, and again, where the job's going to come from, in part because one Tesla takes about 1.6 kilometers worth of copper to connect the battery to all the electrics, right? So that's about, if you just, I wrote it down somewhere because I found it very interesting, but I've lost it now. 82 kilograms of copper goes into one Tesla. So when you think about this transition about consumer behavior, about how they're going to contribute to net zero in vehicle choices, for example, this has to start coming from somewhere. The 20 million vehicles Tesla wants to produce a year requires 9% of the world's copper. It's not going to happen very easily. And worse yet, copper is not listed as a critical mineral in the mineral strategy. So does anyone know what a critical mineral is? By the way, graphite's one. Give you a clue. Graphite. If you were scared of the periodic table before, be very afraid now. But there's 24 listed critical minerals. They are sometimes called rare earths as well, in part because they don't occur in big concentrations, so it's difficult to get them out. But the only place in Australia that doesn't have critical minerals is the inland belt from Brisbane across to central Australia, but everywhere else has them. And I think this is a national problem, and a very exciting problem to solve.
Brilliant. Thank you. Learning all the time. Critical minerals, not from Brisbane to the centre. Anywhere else, I can start digging and see where I get to. Now, Sharon, you talked a little bit about new technologies, both changing work and also potentially changing training. Certainly we heard from BAE. I had to Google what a SQEP was, suitably qualified and experienced person, often related to the nuclear industry. I thought it was good that people would be qualified and experienced with nuclear industry. But when she was talking about immersive learning, the use of VR and AR, and we will have some of that in the panel session this afternoon. So we've got new technologies being introduced into teaching and learning. We've also got them being introduced into the way that people work, and therefore there's a skills question and issue related to that. So can you share a bit more about some of the technologies that are being used in your industries?
Probably yes, but I probably would come at it in regards to our role, and I think for everybody around the table, our roles is to actually look at what are those skills, and a lot of that we don't know. We can't use the history to determine what we need going forward. Equally, our traditional model of training, as we've obviously been working in for many, many years, is changing. So this is going to create, I think, the opportunity for we've all got to start thinking differently. And I will also point on the fact that, I suppose, picking up on Gavin's point, is that we need to work collaboratively, and by that I'm referring to the fact that Gavin's talking about critical minerals and whatnot, but then how do you actually move that to a manufacturing skill set? Yeah, because that's changed, therefore the manufacturing side of things has changed. Then you start thinking about the digital applications and the opportunities that provides, that's changed. Then you go to, I suppose, the safety and all those other things that you need to take into account when you're doing something like this. So all of a sudden, the whole supply chain is impacted when we have a change. And I think the role of the 10 JSCs and everybody in this room around collaboration and working together to actually tackle a lot of these challenges. And obviously the advancements of technology in the manufacturing sector is same but different in every other sector. And so obviously it's leveraging and not, I suppose, rebuilding the wheels, so to speak. And I should call out, in spirit of collaboration, I know that Patrick Kidd's going to talk, no doubt, a lot this afternoon about digital technology and obviously the opportunities. And Jean Dizelle is in the room as well, who's the CEO of Public Safety and Government. And we're having those conversations where we need to have them with everybody to actually try and shift the actual way we're doing things.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm coming to you, Kit, but you're not going to tell me necessarily about new technology. So, Gavin, I'm going to stick with you first. New technologies, changing work, and as Sharon's talked about it, the implications for changing skills in your industries.
I'll call it straight away. We don't have a skill set in critical minerals beneficiation. It's not there, and it's something that's going to have to be created. So there's a new application to existing ways we do things. And when we think about the workforce of critical minerals, is it the existing workforce, and do they have an opportunity to participate? So when you think we as an industry for the mining have about 320,000 operational people working in that, about 40,000 of those are coal miners, and we think that this is an industry that's going to be transitioning away from at least thermal coal. That's the bulk of those workers. Do they get an opportunity to participate in a new way in critical minerals, for example? But I do think it is the existing workforce that you've got to look at first, but how willing are they to go through this reskilling or upskilling opportunity for this style of? Because extracting it from the ground is pretty much known. We know how to do that, so the existing workforce can do something there. But as the industry develops new technologies, new ways, and it's been on the forefront of this for a long time with particularly automation and remote operations, there's those upskilling, and I'm very proud to say that Rio Tinto produced Australia's first autonomous qualifications, and just a shout out to them. They're finalists in the WA State Training Awards, which comes up next in a couple of weeks' time or thereabout. So there is this recognition that there's a changing way to do it, but can we catch up very quickly to reskill the broader workforce with these opportunities? And I think the other technological interfaces. So I think that OEMs drive a lot of the efficiencies in mobile equipment, for example. So it's the interface of an operator as to how they become a technician, how they become someone who diagnoses something, how they become a data storyteller. So there's that interface is different. But we have a captive workforce, sorry, bad word, a workforce that loves working in our industry. How do we invigorate them to participate in the new opportunities?
Great. And sticking with workforce, Kit, I'm now coming back to you. So we've got, the pink boots, as you described it, approach to try and get more women into non-traditional industries, some more successful than others. But something that we don't spend much time thinking about or discussing is retaining. Like, once we get people, women or other, underrepresented groups through the door, how do we retain them? What should we be doing?
So firstly, I'd say those campaigns are not successful. Okay. The dial has not changed, right? And Australia has a particular characteristic of gender segregated workforces, which JSA has produced data that I know some of the JSCs have seen, which shows that those that are the most segregated workforces have the highest skill shortages. Now, in my experience, that's no coincidence. It's really interesting because I'm up here for TWA today. TWA has actually pivoted its strategy. We have realised that the recruitment work that we're doing is actually not delivering to our mission. We are pivoting to do cultural and systemic and structural change of the industries that we work of. So I will get calls from TAFE saying, we've got a program about attracting women in trades. I'm going, that's great. I will do that not for money, but if I can have a conversation with your employers, right? So we have pivoted because it's the retention bit, right? I've also got a tag here today for another organisation I'm part of, which is called Women in Vocational Education, and we're delighted that the new federal government, or the not new anymore, is actually having legitimate conversations about how to genuinely address inequity, because inequity has been in the vet sector since Kangan, right? So we change it by bringing on board and doing the work that is globally done in gender mainstreaming and addressing intersectional disadvantage. My day job is a women's health service, family violence, sexual reproductive health, workplace gendered violence, mental ill health because of inequality, right? So I know that the stuff that you do, when it's done well, saves lives. Children thrive. People are healthier. Women have more superannuation. This is not theory. The way you change it is you do systemic and cultural change. There is a reason why those apprenticeship rates on completion of women are not changing. Right? We have to have conversations where women in trades is as important as men in care work, where women in leadership is as important as men taking parental leave, where women's safety against workplace gendered violence is as much as a productivity commission, she says, looking at the Economist there, as IT improvements in productivity discussions. Because in my world, it absolutely is. The other thing that we do, and I issue a challenge to our friends from the ACTU and JSCs, we have to redefine what we consider tripartism. In my world, if I design a program, a system or a service that doesn't centre the lived experience of those people that I'm hoping to improve the lives of, I have failed in my job. Why can't we do that here? I look around the room and there are people that look like me, gainfully employed, educated. I am not normal Australia. I'm neither exceptional. We are not normal. So WAVE's challenge to the system is one, centre the lived experience of those people that you're trying to serve. Two, address your own inequality in your vet system. Vet has a pay gap. There is evidence from Victoria about that, and there's other evidence about the inequality there. And as much as we have conversations about women in trade, let us apply to those to the same stereotypes that prevent men and all genders from being able to understand that they have a legitimate career pathway and work in care as well. So I sit in these conversations with privilege because I used to work at a skills council with John Hart and Ian Blanthorne, right? But I also now work in Dandenong, Cardinia, Hastings, to stop women getting killed. What you do, I know you know it matters, but we actually have to change the way, and we have to centre equity in all our decisions, because otherwise we are never going to get the people into the jobs to let them have meaningful lives.
Brilliant call to action. Thank you very much, Kit. And in keeping with that future focus, what should we be doing? What are we going to be doing? Sharon, I'm going to ask you, maybe not quite such a profound call to action, but talk us through what's ahead for your Jobs and Skills Council.
Us, along with all the Jobs and Skills Councils, our focus at the moment is very much around that workforce planning challenge. I think previously the model had gone straight into addressing skills to be more responsive. I think it's been well received that we're taking that step back and actually looking at what are the workforce challenges and doing workforce planning that actually looks into what is needed beyond, obviously, the short term. That is, I suppose, complementary to the fact that we're not just looking at training packages. We're all in various stages. I should say that we're 2 months old. I think every one of the 9, nearly 10 JSCs are at the point that they're establishing. Minister O'Connor spoke to us on Monday, and his call to action for us is to, I suppose, in many ways, take a breath and really sit back, because this is not going to be a solution that we're going to come up with overnight. This is something we need to work on, and we all need to work on that together. Don't rush at the problem. sit back and actually look at what are the actual challenges. So this is going to be, and I think the Minister is very much committed, as we are, that if we're going to get this right, we've all got to work together, and it's going to be a lot of work over the next while to get to that solution. And those people who are actually dealing with, I suppose, training people up, skilling people, working with apprentices, working with employers, they're the people that we need to get to understand what are the challenges, because the data in itself, and JSA's data is obviously enabling and supplementary to what we need, but it's actually the real conversations and the real discussions that need to be had at the, I suppose, ground level. That's, I think, part of that feedback loop that hasn't been as strongly, I suppose, thought about in a lot of the policy initiatives that have been run today.
And the data's crucial. At the moment, the data doesn't tell that inequity story.
No, and it's grappling with, in addition, the future skills story. Because the landscape is going through a profound change, how does one get that data? So it is going to require that A, collecting data where it is available, to Kit's point, and B, where there isn't good data, better engagement to try and get those feedback loops. So Gavin, you've talked about one potential skill set, digging up lithium and other things from the ground and doing things with them. What else are you working on for the future?
Yeah, we're doing the same workforce plan. And just so you know, some of my team is here today, and please engage with them. They're sitting down there. There they are.
Right down the end?
Right on the
Yep.
end,
There you
yeah.
go.
Right at the back, yeah. Avoiding me, clearly, but that's all good. But part of that, the other big thing for us is electric vehicles. And electric vehicles, so you know, it's the third most popular car bought every month at the minute. So Michael down there, he can talk to you a bit about, you know, the EV skill set, because it's really interesting. They're doing some work together with the one of the other JSEs, which is Powering Skills, it's the electrotechnology one, about how do we build a faster way to get the existing technicians that are already qualified, how do we get them EV ready? So it really is a skill set idea there. So that's one of the things we're doing. Critical minerals, of course, is another one that I think is very exciting. But the workforce plan, I tell you, all 10 JSCs, we've committed that when the workforce plans come out in an interim form in the next 3 or 4 months, we'll collate what an executive summary looks like to see what common issues are floating to the top, because I think that will help identify further collaborative opportunities. For us, it's about deep industry engagement. So we just have established our, what we call strategic workforce advisory panels, or our SWAPs. So we're having SWAP meets with hopefully some of you in the room as well. And out of that, defining some discrete projects that our technical advisory groups, our tags, we love new ones, and apparently some of the other JSCs have stolen my names for my swaps and tags. They're welcome to them. But these will be like fast moving as quick as we can to get to a quick solution with industry engagement to see what can be done. But it's that broader remit, workforce planning, training packages, yes, but that implementation bit, that round, like really cohesive picture as to, you know, what we can do for our industries and how we support their value chains as well.
Brilliant, and hence you've got your staff here. And Sharon, I'm going to shout out, you've got your chair here, the lovely Graham Russell. So if anybody's got any questions about manufacturing, and Sharon's busy, Graham will be pleased to answer them. He's looking at me less than impressed. I'm now going to open it up to if there are any questions from the audience. I'm getting nods from Craig going, yes, she's pretty much kept this to time. And the lovely John Buchanan will have time to give his full presentation. So have we got any questions from the audience? Oh, they're sort of looking who's going to ask the first one. No, I've got, oh, we do. The lovely Michael Boyce has got a question down the front. Meanwhile, I will just say, swaps and tags sounds like a US NFL kind of, I'm sure don't they have swap meets around American football or something like that? Anyway, that's what it reminded me of. Michael.
Thank you, Claire. Listening to the Minister this morning, and again to Simon, and particularly thinking about the category 4-5 shift that we probably need to make into that next skill level, one of the most underrepresented areas, I think, that hasn't been talked about this morning is mature age females returning to the workforce. And I'm really keen to hear from both Kit and the Jobs and Skills Councils whether it's featuring in your radar somewhere.
So you You ask a very insightful question, because what faces older women is multiple forms of discrimination. And I'm looking at John Buchanan, who once tried to tell me this a long time ago, but I didn't believe him then, but I do now. One of the realities of our specific skills systems, globally researched, is that they don't serve women well, right? And they don't serve women well because they are not flexible enough. And that's why there's a lot of women doing higher education, because those systems and the structures benefit them. And if you think of an older, mature woman, she's got childcare, she's got caring responsibilities, she has got less superannuation, she's not living at a higher level of SES level. So how is our vocational education and training system serving her in her life journey, right? And again, I go to that point, sir, which is we need to centre and listen to the lived experience of those people, who are many, and then design systems around it. And we can think about future systems and innovation all they want. But here's the rub. When I talk to people about innovation, they think it's an app. There is digital divide in this country. And for some people, being innovative is unlocking the front door at the start of the day and walking out. Being able to navigate the health system, right? Please don't think that our lived experience is what is common. And that's why bringing more voices and legitimising that as good data is really important. So I think kudos to you for asking that question, sir.
Sharon? Gavin?
I'll go, because as a mining industry, for example, new digital technology, remote operations, automation allows new interface with styles of work and return to work opportunities. So an operator can drive a dozer from Perth as opposed to needing to go to a site, for example. There is job sharing in a bigger way. So perhaps next time, Di, we might get one of our members to come in and actually operate real time. They'll bring it to your, and they'll operate dozers off-site, so you can actually see how you can participate in a new way. And I think, Kit, that's such important observations you've made about how do you return to the workforce at what phase of life. And I think that is true for many, but we've seen an activation in particularly members making deliberate employment decisions about who they want. So Rio Tinto, for example, is out for female-only applications for certain job categories. You're welcome to go on their website, you'll see that. Female-only apprenticeship opportunities as well. So I think there are job changes, but how do we communicate that you're invited in to participate no matter what your skill level, because we can do something with that. We just want your curiosity to come with you.
And I suppose just picking up on that question, it's almost a perfect storm in many ways, by way of the fact that actually asking employers, particularly in the manufacturing sector, which obviously females are ridiculously underrepresented irrespective of their age, it's changing the way, the quality of the work and the quality of the work experience. I think employers in the past would go, well, that will take additional effort, time, money, etc. I don't need to worry about that, whereas they do now, because they are the only way we're going to address that, what we were looking at before. The people coming into the workforce, it's not all about skilled migration. We've actually got to look at tapping into the cohorts that aren't engaged. Why aren't they engaged? And what can we do to have them engaged? And that, I think, will be certainly something that will come out of all of our workforce planning over the next while. And the conversations, I think, will start sooner rather than later.
Brilliant. Kit, definitely not normal, but definitely exceptional. And Sharon and Gavin, exceptional as well, and always great to speak with you. Thank you all very much.